I think I could become, based on trajectory, if my handicap keeps going up, I could be the world's greatest 5-handicap golfer.
There we go, everyone. You heard it here first. Punchy.
I don't feel like there's any justice.
Watch this.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. Bruce is joined me today. Bruce, how the devil are you?
Good morning. Yeah, early morning podcast. Bit of a rarity for us, but here we are, ready to go.
It's been a few weeks since we've been to Royal North Devon. We haven't been able to find a bit of time yet to sit down and chew the cud properly, but I thought we'd spend 15, 20 minutes talking about the event, the course, the people, the ambience, and then we've got a little sort of 40-minute discussion with Robert Fowler, who's the club's archivist, who's a really cool guy. He wrote the history book on Royal North Devon. Really enjoyed sitting there and doing a pod with him before going out. So we'll kind of cut to him, but I just kind of wanted to kind of put a brief cover note on this pod and probably a bit of us chatting about the course. Bruce, you've been down there quite a bit over the last few years. Is that fair to say? Because it was a first time hit for me.
Yeah, no, this year was my third time going down there. So I first went down in 2019. Shout out to a friend of the pod, Piers Parnell, who invited Harry and I to go down. And basically, I think the last week in August, that week that finishes with the bank holiday weekend, is a bit of a golfing bonanza, really, down at Royal North Devon. So I guess it's almost like their annual meeting, for want of a better word, where they have a huge amount of competitive golf throughout the week. And
it's like a whole week of medals, isn't it? The whole thing.
Yeah, they're not just medals. There's a bit of, I think there's like maybe a scramble or a 4-ball, better ball competition in there as well. And they've got some handicap stuff too. There's some match play as well as stroke play. But on the Friday, you have the club silver medal, which, as far as I'm aware, I think that is the oldest club honours board in English golf, or it might even be UK golf, but stretching a long way back there, and that's something that I've had the opportunity to play in a couple of times. And then on the Saturday, you've got the scratch Kashmir Cup, which is 36-hole scratch medal off the black tees,
which they never use apart from that one time of the year. They're in the middle of nowhere, aren't they?
They're pretty unique. And then on the Sunday, there's a match between the Oxford and Cambridge Golf Society and the club. So Piers was kindly invited us to go and play in that back in 2019, and loved it so much. Been back a couple of times since. Didn't go in 2020 because of the dreaded sea, but it's just an amazing place. And I mean, it was your first time there, Sam, wasn't it? So
yeah, it's great. I mean, I really enjoyed it. Look, the conversation with Robert that we're going to cut to in a bit covers a load of the history stuff, and you talk about the honours boards there. When you see Horace Hutchinson with about 8 or 9 ditto marks below him year on year, where he's just won the same thing, and obviously you see things like Taylor's Locker and the whole history around that as the kind of first English golf club. It's pretty amazing to see what a great job they've done in preserving it all, really. But one thing that going into it, if I'm being brutally honest, is it's going to be a Marmite course. Some people absolutely love it and others absolutely hate it. And I'm just being really honest.
Yeah, where do you sort of stand on that spectrum? Because
I really love the place. Yeah. I came where I really love the place. I can see. I suppose some of this issue is sometimes the naive visiting golfer might go into it expecting, Royal Birkdale, huge towering dunes and kind of dramatic golf holes. You don't really have that much of it. You've got some spectacular golf holes, don't get me wrong. And some of the architecture, I think, particularly on those sort of outward 10, are really, really strong. There's some really, really good golf holes there. But, it's a really flat piece of land. So when you get out the car, you look at it and go, crikey, there's 18 holes out there, are there? Because all you can see is 1 and 18. And then it all just sort of disappears into the horizon, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's, I think it's just great fun because, it's the oldest course in England, really. It's the cradle of English golf. And as you say, when you go there, you can see 1 and 18, and as you work your way out, it's actually very, very playable and extremely generous off the tee. I think the 13th hole might be the widest fairway in golf, or the widest sort of landing area in golf is, other than a couple of bushes here
anywhere,
and there.
can't you?
You can pretty much go anywhere. But when the wind blows down there and it gets a little bit firmer, the green starts to get a bit shiny. I think personally, it's a bloody difficult test of golf, and I think one of the things that keeps me coming back, aside from how brilliant and welcoming the club is, which is something that we'll get onto in a moment, and the course is great fun as well. There's almost like this sort of sadistic obsession I have with the ability that with the fact that I don't feel like I've played or scored all that well around there in the 3 years I've been going, and yet it just sort of seems like it should be a course. You should be able to put a bit of a score together.
Yeah, and it lures you back, doesn't it? And I think that's the feeling. Like, I drove away from it thinking, I really want to get back down there again because I feel like I could play it differently. So therefore, that isn't, I hit the ball okay. But if I'd have made different decisions out there, I would have played a lot better in the event. And I think that's the essence of a really good course. You touched on 13. That's actually one of the standout holes for me, which is this ridiculously wide par 5 that kind of, it gradually climbs. It's not like a big uphill or anything, is it? But it sort of gradually works its way back slightly uphill. It's not particularly long. I think it's like 480, 490 or something off the whites. It's like a sort of a mid-length par 5. And you could take a run at it with the driver, couldn't you? Like, it really, you could hit it pretty much anywhere. But then the complexity around the green and where you put your second shot in relation to where the pin is on that green is everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, you described it beautifully there. It's it's a short par 5, really, I think, by today's standards. And if you get a bit of wind behind, or even if you leave it in the sort of semi-rough, you can get a bit of a flyer and chase something up there. But the green is so severely tilted from front to back and almost left to right, and it's just so sharp. Like, the runoff area, people talk about upturned saucers, but it's
mental, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the steepest saucer I've ever seen.
It's not particularly high, but there's, like, I would say 6 feet of elevation, maybe 5 or 6 feet of elevation, but it's probably at about a 70-degree angle, isn't it?
Yeah, and if that pins over on the right-hand side and you miss it, it's fine margins, because if you miss it just slightly on the right one, then you just putt it up the slope. You're kind of at the bottom of the tier. That's fine. If you're further right, so you're 10, 20 yards right of the pin, then you are really in a difficult spot. Yeah. And then if you're left of the green when the pin's over on the right, I mean, there's some rushes over there that if you get an unfortunate bounce with the approach shot, you could be kind of pretty close to those, or even find yourself in one of those, which is obviously not a good spot to be. And even if you do have a shot to the green from the left, there's just like such a low chance you'll be able to keep it on the green because it's kind of running away from you. So, I mean, I think over the years in the Kashmir Cup, many people have come undone around that green complex, even though you look at it and you think this should just be a pretty straightforward birdie. It's nothing. It's just not even close to that.
You touched on the rushes there. Be remiss to not talk about the course and not talk about those rushes. I've never seen that vegetation anywhere. It's not like sort of heavy, sort of thick rushes. This stuff is like barbed wire, isn't it? It's so insanely heavy. If your ball goes anywhere near it, there is no way you can play out of it. It's essentially, it might as well be a localized water hazard, really, except if you hit it off the tee, you're going to have to go back. It's mental. I think Harry was saying one year someone put their hand into the rushes and then got their finger sort of stuck into one of the sharp blades of the rush, and then ended up losing their finger like 3 days later. It got infected, and then it's seriously penal stuff.
I'm not sure how much of an apocryphal story that is. Just to
never the truth getting away with a good story.
Against. Yeah. There are plenty of people out there. I'd count myself one of them who almost just have an obsession with trying to find a golf ball. And that's probably a deterrent if you are a little bit too eager and you see a ball in a rush, or you want to just go fishing for a ball, and if you think it's landed in a particular rush out there, and you could really come a cropper if you manage to skewer your finger on one. But they are pretty unique. I can't think of many other places really where I've seen them, but Of course, a bit of the background at Royal North Devon at Westward Ho is that it is council-owned land, really. So the club, as far as I'm aware, can't take out those rushes because whether it's an environmental legislation or requiring another form of consent from the local authority, they're not able to move them. So they're a defining feature, really. They're there to stay. There's no plans to move any of them around, even where the carries on a few holes, certainly for some of the sort of older members of the club, actually quite daunting. I think 10, but 11 in particular is actually quite an intimidating tee shot because, as you say, because of the relatively level topography at Royal North Devon, the tee box isn't particularly elevated there, and you're just looking out at a sea of rushes, and you can't really see the fairway.
You can't see anything. And the thing is, you've played 9 holes or so, which are relatively open off the tee, haven't you?
Yeah.
Okay, there's holes like 7, we can maybe come back to that, but you've got holes but by and large, it's pretty generous off the tee. And then you get on 10 and you're like, oh God, this feels claustrophobic because all the rushes are in and you've got to just find the right portion. And then 11, you sort of, like you say, you almost summit over those rushes. And first time I played it, it's like, that scene in Indiana Jones, The Last Crusade, where he has to sort of put his right foot out and he throws the sand down and sees and the sand stays there. And it's like a leap of faith that there's a bridge there. That's how I felt hitting that 5-iron the first time I played it. It's like, I'm fairly sure there's a fairway over there, but I've got absolutely nothing to back that up. And it's like, it really is. And it's,
I think a house on the hill, but there's actually a few of them. So you're like, oh, I don't know if I've picked the right one there. I was looking at this chimney, and now that I've looked back at the ball, I'm like, oh, there's a bit of doubt kind of creeping in.
So in your
actually,
head.
the more you play it, you kind of realize that a shot that's going between sort of 230 and 260 actually gives you about 65 yards of fairway to play with. If you're trying to poke something down there 200, 210, you're kind of playing into a 40-yard fairway.
It's exactly what I did. And then I ended up dropping clubs every time I played it. And then I think in the morning on the Saturday or whatever, and it was like, I think it took me 3 blows to get off the tee, which was not particularly helpful to a medal score. It wasn't constructive. Can we talk about the yeah, definitely. Can we talk about what you see as maybe the magic stretch of the course? I've got a little stretch of holes in mind.
Right. Okay. Well, I'd be interested to know what your stretch of holes is. Personally, I think that front 9 really builds, and as you go down the I'm going to say, is it the 5th, the par 3? That's a pretty cool climb up that hole. It's elevated green, pin quite often at the front. You can leave yourself some smelly putts there, and and it's falling off all sides. So that for me is just a great hole as you summit onto that 5th green, and then you tee off down 6. I think 6 is another fantastic hole where it's pretty generous off the tee, but you want to get yourself pretty far down there because the second shot can be a little bit tricky if you've got some wind to contend with.
That's exactly where I would put the magic stretch. 4, really? 5, 6. Yeah. Because you've got, 5's just an all-world par 3, isn't it? It really is. Like the bunkering, elevated shot. 6, like you say, is so strategic in terms of where you're trying to put your tee shot. You can just tap a 4-iron down there, but you're going to have to lean on a lot of club to a really tricky little green with all that mounding on the left. Whereas really you want to push your drive kind of down to the 10th green almost. The further you get down towards that, it actually opens up a better shot where you can play up the bank slightly.
More of a backstop,
But 4 with that kind of sleeper face bunkering, which is kind of irrelevant today. So 4's that, anyone who's seen pictures of Royal North Devon will have seen, the huge dramatic vertical sleeper face bunkering with the arrows on, and it's an iconic feature of the golf course. That I think was the largest bunker in golf for a period of time. But now today, the hazard's slightly irrelevant because the chances are most players are going to cover a 160-yard carry, you'd think. But I can imagine back in the day of Hutchinson and Taylor when, granted, those guys were ball strikers, but with hickory equipment, that thing would have been absolutely fearsome. And I just think that whole little stretch, 4's, even when you summit that bunker, the mounding and the rippling on the fairway and the green side itself is just class. Like, it's just, there's so much going for it on that little stretch that, I was a huge fan. But then 3's good. 7 is a hole they talk about a lot. Did you play 7 before the change?
I did. Yes. The first time I went down in 2019, I don't know if that was the last year that 7 was played in the older configuration. It used to be a par 4 where you basically hit over the rushes that are now on the left side of the fairway. You kind of drive and then hit over those for your second shot. And then that would leave you up kind of by the 8th tee, and then you kind of carry on the 8th as it was the longer par 3. But that's now changed. So, I mean, Royal North Devon changed quite a bit over the years, and it is affected by coastal erosion and that receding, the receding coastline, I guess, if that's the right expression. So they've rebuilt 7. That is a pretty new hole. I think it's only a couple of years old now. And into a longer par 5. They've done some new bunkering there, which is great. And it's just it's a slightly different hole, really.
Yeah, totally different. Seems to be like the favourite topic of the members to talk about, because they seem to love 7 with that kind of 90-degree angle. Yeah, you can still kind of see where the green site would be. It's all blown out by sand and it's all been weathered away now. But, you know, the par 5 that steps in its place it's a bit of a brute, actually. It's a really tricky tee shot to try and get yourself right down there.
You want to avoid the deep bunker, give yourself a second shot to the green. But yeah, I think it's a great sort of risk reward hole, really. Again, there's a lot on the second shot on where you miss it, because although it's quite generous up by the green, you can just make an absolute fool of yourself, like I did in the second round, where you're sort of chipping off a kind of slightly crusty lie to a green that's above you, with the slope sort of running away from you, and all of a sudden you kind of walk off with a 6, thinking, what on earth have I done there? I was pin high into 40 feet away from the flag. Made a complete pig's ear of it. 8 is another hole which I understand is going to change too. That is a great par 3 currently.
Really understated golf hole, isn't it? But it's a brilliant par 3. Yeah,
with some great bunkering that kind of, you got to sort of channel a shot in between the bunkers or fly one most of the way there. But it's about a 210 yard shot, I think. But sadly, that green is also going to be affected by the coastal erosion. So they're putting in a new par 3, which actually I went up and had a quick look at it, because that's starting to bed in now. And I understand they've kind of played it a couple of times this year. So it'll be interesting to get back there. It might be in play, might be fully in play next time. If we're able to go down for the autumn meeting there, or the silver medal in the Kashmir Cup next year. Be interesting to see how that plays.
Then in terms of the clubhouse atmosphere, because I mean, we're going to cut to Robbie in a bit, who's going to talk about the history, but I would say there's a unique sort of feeling in the air, very different to pretty much any other golf club you go. The clubhouse, it's almost like it's just an uber relaxed atmosphere, isn't it? And I think the club's so much better. I sort of read articles, kicking around. There's always someone saying, what we should be doing with dress code, what we should be doing with standards, how everything needs to be relaxed. I'm not sure that's quite right, but in the case of Royal North Devon, it feels like the club is part of the identity, is the relaxed atmosphere that you get there. The fact that you can just kind of kick around in shorts and flip-flops and enjoy yourself, and the whole thing has just a very nice social edge to it, I think.
Definitely. I think that it's funny, isn't it? Because that is a club that is the cradle of English golf and has probably more of a right than most clubs in England to kind of insist on maybe an adherence to certain traditions or dress code. And it's just so relaxed. There's no airs and graces there. It's a thoroughly welcoming club. I mean, you and I think we love long socks, foursomes golf, jacket and tie more than most in golf. But actually, going down to Royal North Devon and seeing how relaxed it is, it's quite refreshing change of pace. Actually, I think going there,
potent, isn't it? It's like, it's nice when everything's different. It's like, might even be writing a little piece on the topic of long socks, actually. But for another large media outlet, who interestingly I did play golf with that day. But Yeah, I think it's the potency of going somewhere where it has a very distinct personality in the clubhouse, and that just makes everything so much better. The fact that you go into the clubhouse and there's all the history there, and you go to the bar and they've got like a little free port thing. So there's a bottle of port turned upside down, which is completely free of charge, and you can help yourself. But if you have the last measure in the port bottle, you have to buy another bottle. And it's just these little charming things that are quite cool. Then you order your food round the side at the little sort of side entrance to the kitchen, and the portions come out. And again, they're just frankly ridiculous. I think I had the most calorific chicken wrap that's ever been known to man at one point. Yeah, it's awesome. So no, I thought it was really cool, hugely enjoyable. Golf was mixed. But I don't think the fact that I hit the ball reasonably good, but scored completely differently on all the 3 rounds for me was the biggest lure in coming back. I couldn't let
That's your game at the moment, though, isn't it? You're just absolutely ripping it at the moment. Just thinking, why can't I score? So
I always have these little sound bites. I think I could become, based on trajectory, if my handicap keeps going up, I could be the world's greatest 5 handicap golfer.
There we go. Everyone, you heard it here first. Punchy.
I don't feel like there's any justice. No, I'm joking. Well, it's weird because I scored crap on the Friday and the Saturday morning, and then I played with Dan Davies, founder and course architect at RNGC, who people will know from our film and our Course Diaries podcast. If you haven't checked that out, please do. And I played with Mike Harris, who's the editor at Golf Monthly. Really nice guy, so much fun. I couldn't have enjoyed his company anymore. We had just a brilliant 36-hole day. The day before, I'd played with Dale and Hugo. Again, fantastic company from start to finish. But after the morning round on the 36-holer, there's this sort of shabbly time that they seem to be quite fond of there, which is seemingly you've got about 50 minutes for lunch, and it's like a race to see how many bottles of shabbly you can kind of empty before you go back out in the afternoon, which is all well and good, but it was bloody hot. And actually, I think a bit of water would have been a bit better going into the afternoon round. I think I'd got myself slightly dehydrated. Luckily, John Davey from Sounder didn't want to play the Kashmir Cup, had gone surfing in the morning down at Appledore, and he'd had a nice time, moseyed on up to the golf club and said, I'll jump on the bag, which got me really in the mood for it then. So
amazing. What
me and him was I was just throwing nauseating caddy chat with him all afternoon, about 3-finger 6 irons and, love that play and all that kind of jazz. But John got me round, and it's weird, I just played the course slightly differently, didn't hit it any better, and scored about 7 or 8 better. It was one of those rounds where actually got a ton out of it just by making better decisions, which, kind of as we kick this little discussion off is, I think, the essence of a great golf course. So any other closing remarks before we cut over to Robert?
No, I think, you've capped off what was a truly excellent few days there. And, being with so many kind of like-minded people and close friends in golf, this big sort of jamboree down there in Westward Ho, it was a terrific few days. And I think you kind of summed it up nicely there with the fact that JD hopped on the bag and you're able to have a bit of fun. He went and got ice creams for us on 3. Yeah. So third tee went over. There's an ice cream van where they're doing surfing. So he went over and gets me, Mike, and Dan himself a little 99 with a flake. That was that was absolutely delightful. And then you tee off 4, and there's a visitor's hut on the beach. So he goes in there and then goes and scores us 4 free beers as well, which was just impeccable caddying. I mean, it really was. One thing I do want to say before we close is all of those things that we've talked about they're open competitions. So whilst they're really significant events in the club's calendar and their honours boards, what I think is brilliant is that they run them as open competitions. So, people can just literally go on BRS through the club's website and get those booked. And I would hugely encourage people to go and do that for next year. I will definitely be going back. Sounds like you will be too. Yeah. So yeah, it was great. Yeah. Well, without further ado, it's over to Robert, and we hope you enjoy this pod. It's a really interesting chat. Loads of little nuggets in there, and over to Robert.
Watch this.
Robert, Robbie. What's the preferred?
Robbie probably is what I'm better known as, to be fair.
Teeth on mic, we always say.
It's a bit into it.
You've got to get it right there, like a sort of football commentator.
All right, yeah.
Robbie.
Yeah, Robbie, yeah. That's probably best what I'm known as, yeah, because of Robbie Fowler, really.
Obviously, of course, footballing icon.
Yeah, I wish I was him.
But you're not a Liverpudlian, so you've been a member here since you were knee-high to a grasshopper.
I was born in the house I live in, yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
But how old are you now?
I'm 75. It's a big number, isn't it? It's a big number.
Bloody hell. 70 years in the same place.
Yeah. No. I've been away. Bright Lights, Birmingham, London.
Okay.
Yeah.
Travelled around and stuff.
Well, in a manner of speaking, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. So, obviously, we're here to talk about RND, Royal North Devon, Westward Ho. How do you refer to it? Do you call it Westward Ho?
I do. I call it Westward Ho. You know, it was always, people call it RND. You know, it's been shortened to RND. So I think most people know it as RND, not Westward Ho.
Okay. But you like the old
I like Westward Ho, yeah.
That's how Darwin and everyone else used to.
Yes, they did, actually,
right?
yeah.
It was always known as
Westward Ho, yeah.
Well, it's my first visit, so we're recording this on the 26th of August, playing in the silver medal today, and then the Kashmir Cup. Now I'm sat here, I'm looking out on a huge expanse of relatively flat linksland, which is kind of how it's been billed to me as you get here, and actually the course itself is quite flat. I've never actually played here at all.
Right.
I'm aware that I'm playing for a piece of golfing history this afternoon.
You are, indeed you are, yeah. Club Silver Medal.
Tell me about that.
1864.
Which would make that, the oldest medal in English golf? Oh,
unlikely. I think Blackie probably have got some older ones. Because we're like the third oldest, I think. There was Blackie, then Old Manchester. There was a course at Brighton, but then it is us. I think we're like, to be honest, I think we're the second oldest now after Blackheath in England.
But the oldest that's still standing on its current site, right?
Yeah. I mean, we have moved the course a little bit, you know, when we put the clubhouse up in 1888. Before that, it was all out there, just under the ridge, really.
This is Pebble Ridge, isn't it? Which we'll come on to.
Pebble Ridge, yeah.
And we should do a proper introduction. So your, role at Royal North Devon or Westward Ho, as a long-standing member, I get the sense you've done all number of things here. I've heard you mention secretary. I've heard you've written the beautiful club's history, which we've got in front of us.
150th, yeah.
President twice,
but it was only because the boy was poorly, and I had to take it over in 2016. Yeah, I was a secretary 1997 to 2010. Time to go. You recognise yourself by day, really. I was a boy member of the Artisans back in 1958. Been playing since 1952. I've got a few honours. I'm on the honours boards here and there. So yeah, I've done all right.
Wow, so it's a special place for you. How would you describe Westward Ho to somebody who's never been here before? How would you kind of bring it to life? Because I'm yet to experience it in its fullest, but
I think, clearly you have to play it to appreciate it or not appreciate it. I think broadly, people come here, they play well, they love it. If they play badly, which is easily done, I think they hate it. You know, there is that love-hate sort of situation. I love it. To me, it's the Ferrari of golf courses, you know?
Well, there's so much history. I mean, it really is the cradle of English golf, right? I think there needs to be some sort of appreciation for, its role in the evolution of the sport, really, in this country.
Yeah, I think because we're out of the way a little bit, we underhit on our history, and people don't really take in how old we are, you know? But that's just a personal thing, that I think we do underhit on our history.
Do you think the sport's maybe a bit quick to run away from some of the great history and traditions that we've got, almost?
Not sure, really. I mean,
because like you said, there's so much brilliant history. I mean, I've only been in the clubhouse, so very briefly to order a very calorific, I will add, chicken wrap, extremely calorific.
Good boy,
and a quick
good boy.
Guinness.
That's good.
the history on the walls there is unbelievable. I mean, it's kind of museum / clubhouse, isn't it, really?
Yeah. But even with the museum, we underhit, really. Because a lot of the clubs, although they look great, the reality is they ain't that great, to be honest. But I'm not demeaning it. It is, it is pretty historic in there.
So you joined the club in 1958, is that right?
I did as a boy member of the Artisans, but then...
and that's a separate club that shares the links here at the time?
It was a separate club, Northern Artisans. Like artisan is a Victorian term, is it? Where you work with your hands. That was the terminology back in the day. But gradually, the Artisans have actually they've acted as a feeder club for the main club, and now I think they've wrapped all together. I think they've been incorporated into the main club. But back when I was the secretary of the Artisans in 1990, we had 120 members.
Wow, right, okay.
So artisan golf has really fallen off the edge of the cliff, really, to be honest.
Which is strange, really.
Well,
I don't know how close you are to the rest of the sort of artisan clubs dotted around the UK, but there's quite a few still there. But I do sense that maybe there's not that many people joining it for whatever reason, which is strange because it's quite a... it's a really cool golf scene in its own right.
Yeah, it's pretty much cheap golf, I think. You've got to do a few chores on the golf course and this and that. But, yeah... I don't know. I know ours has died. I don't think there's an artisan club in Devon now, whereas there used to be, well, I'm talking about 30, 35 years ago, there's probably 5, 6 artisan clubs. So it has fallen off the cliff, really, yeah. I mean, I think people aspire to be a member of the real club, if you like, because with all the kudos that brings up,
sure.
But, yeah.
But, I mean, since 1958, we're talking approximately a third of the club's history. Have you seen it change in that time?
Oh, amazing difference, really. Back in the 50s,
you said it was on its knees almost at one point.
Well, it was on its knees, losing a lot of money, very limited membership to clergy and retired military, guys that had retired from India and expected curry for every meal and stuff like that, So, and it was really difficult. I mean, I was a caddy boy here back in the 50s. And you were like persona non grata,
Really? No clubhouse, no.
You were the professional.
Wait on the benches outside.
The professional was not even allowed in the clubhouse, and it was very, tight that you had to be one of these sort of people that could get in. But it always moved. Now, to be honest, I think we're more of a workman's club now. But I think we've just moved with the times, perhaps better than others.
Yeah, sure.
I appreciate all this collar and tie stuff, and in the right place, it works. But we've relaxed it pretty much. Whether we've dumbed down or just go with the flow, really, because we're a seaside resort. People expect to come, casual and be okay with it. So yeah.
But that's part of the identity of it here, isn't it? I think that again, knowing a lot of people that have been here in the past have always said, it's just a brilliantly laid-back club. If you want to kick your shoes and socks off and wear your flip-flops outside and enjoy a drink and breathe in the sea air, there's no airs and graces. I think that's quite refreshing. There's always a place for a collar and tie, but when you just force it into the situation, I don't think it makes a place any better.
Well, I don't know, really. I say...
I'm not saying you'd introduce it at Muirfield, but the fact that the laid-back atmosphere is part of the club's DNA, really.
It is part of it, yeah. But up until the mid-80s, late 80s, we were a bit of a stuffy club, actually.
Really?
Yeah, we had to really get a grip of what was happening, that people want to be user-friendly. They want to come in jeans and they want to do this, do that. And we've had to slack back on dress code and stuff like that, because of where we are. And, back in the day, early 90s, we were losing 40, 50 grand a year.
Really?
So we had to embrace...
It's not sustainable.
No. So we had to embrace, everybody, really, for the business model, if you like, to work. Business model, I use that loosely because we are a members club. But, when I started as the secretary in 1997, we were into the bank for about £80,000. We had the VAT money back from the members' subscriptions,
that was a biggie.
And suddenly we went into the black. But we had pretty poor time early 90s, lost a lot of money 40, 50 grand, and nobody recognised that, you've got to get with the times and actually try to encourage all sorts of people just to get into golf, which, we
but
managed.
It's busy now, isn't it? A hustling place. We've got... this weekend alone feels like people I know in wider clubs and outside of Devon. This is very much a destination this weekend. This weekend, that bank holiday weekend for the Kashmir Cup and everything like that.
Yeah,
it's almost like a pilgrimage these golfers are making.
Yeah, it's a magic week this week.
Yeah,
it's probably not. The bar is not buzzing as it used to be back in the day, because the Schoolmasters Cup, there used to be an auction for players.
No way, really?
You actually bid for players if you thought they were on form and could go all the way. But a lot of country members there, and the country members almost actually run the show. But obviously they petered out.
But this would stem from your club's original autumn meeting, and then it's just sort of come forward and forward.
It is,
a bit more user-friendly in August, isn't it?
And always the person who won the club silver medal would be the captain for the following year. And of course, back in 70s, early 1870s, two boys won it, and they were chairman of the club. So
no way.
They changed the rules
in the 1870s.
Yeah. So
was that Hutchinson? I heard
Hutchinson was one, and Molesworth was another. Was it Arthur Molesworth? Yeah, they were boys, really, 16, 17-year-old, and the elders of the club obviously said, "Oh no, we can't have this, we can't have this." So they dropped.
Pretty fair, to be honest.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So they dropped that and created a president row, and the president was the top boy for a year.
Right. Okay.
Because traditionally, I think captains became captains because they were the top boy at golf. I think I believe that's
captaining the side, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Always kind of the role of club captain. I think has evolved a lot into what is now almost more of a statesman-like role. I think over time.
Yeah, it definitely has. Yeah.
So, what can you tell me about the sort of founding of the club initially? So, just take me back. I mean, obviously, we should add that you've obviously written the beautiful club history here. That must, I mean, I'm looking at it, must have taken a lifetime to pull all that together. But the club was founded in 1864, which is really, with the exception of Blackheath and somewhere, like you say, near Manchester, it really is one of the first actual sort of golf clubs. And they went to Scotland and wanted to get old Tom Morris down to come and lay out a rudimentary course, is my understanding.
Yeah, I think there was a course already here to some degree, but they thought they wanted to sort of introduce a degree of professional element into it, if you like, because we had double greens back in the day, which is St Andrews,
of course, of course. It's the practical way of playing a links course out and back, with minimal effort.
That's right. Yeah. So where were we?
1864 would have been. That was the initial kind of effort from old Tom.
When it was formed, the club was formed in April 1864,
So just bring to life maybe how those first sort of few years, I don't know, when you did your research for the book, what did those sort of first years look like in the club? You've had a rudimentary course, then old Tom's come and done a visit, and there was... But I think it took him 2 visits, am I right? He came back a few years later and
he did. Yeah, in fact, he came a couple of times because he used to play. He played in a couple of competitions that the club were hosting. 1864. Where are we? I've lost my way again. I mean, to be honest, we copied a lot from Blackheath about the rules of the club and everything like that, because Blackheath used to support us pretty well when we had sort of open competitions. In fact, George Glennie won the first gold medal, I think. So, he travelled all the way from Blackheath by railway, obviously back then. The course has altered quite a bit since 1864, to be honest.
And even now, there's new holes and additions changing out there all the time.
Like the 7th, and they've got a new 8th there. So, it has evolved, really.
Just with the needs of the game, I guess, really.
Yeah,
I mean, anything.
Prior to that one, the only real big change was in 1923 when the 14th was altered slightly. But that, since then, there's been nothing other than what we've done now at the 7th, new 7th and new 8th. So, it's stood the test of time, really. because when Fowler redesigned the course in 1908, the yardage of the main course was similar to what the yellow tee is now.
Is that right? Okay,
yeah,
wow.
Very similar, yeah.
So it would have been an absolute brute on a tough day, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Back in those days.
Oh, with Hickory and
Put a 30-mile-an-hour wind up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That boggles the mind, doesn't it? So Herbert Fowler did some revisions into 1908 then. That's sort of...
Well, I think it was because of the Haskell ball.
Yeah, sure, which was pretty divisive at the time, I think.
Yes, it was, yeah. I think that came in 1901, something like that. And obviously, the course was easy with this new ball. Bounding Billy, wasn't it? Was it Bounding Billy?
Depends on who you ask. I don't think I would have found it particularly easy still.
No,
but relatively speaking, to the gutty percher.
No, but because of that, we had to lengthen the course, and Fowler... I think it was at Walton Heath then.
That's right. Yeah, so
he designed Walton Heath, so he came here and redesigned the course a little bit. Well, quite a bit actually. 7 or 8 holes he altered. Some he left, but some of the weaker holes he strengthened. I think that's fair comment on that one. Yeah.
There's a couple of characters in the club's sort of history around, I suppose, really around the turn of the century, which. We've done a few podcasts recently with authors who've written books about the Great English Boom. This whole concept.
1890s onwards.
That sort of period of acceleration. John Ball Jr. wins the Open as an amateur and all of that great stuff. Yeah. And there's this huge acceleration in the game, and there's two figures that really seem to be at the absolute centre of it, I guess, Robbie, and that's Horace Hutchinson and J.H. Taylor, who are really significant figures in the club's history, right?
Yeah.
The two almost had a special relationship amongst themselves, didn't they?
Yes, they did, really. J.H. Taylor, okay, he was here in the beginning. He was a member of the Artisans, and he did a bit of greenkeeping work. But I think he moved to Burnham pretty much when they were in formation, and then he went to obviously Winchester and forget the other one now he went to. Was it Royal Mid-Surrey? Yeah, I think it was Royal Mid-Surrey. So he drifted away from us, and then he came back to retire, I think, just before the Second World War, and he had a house at Windmill Lane. So I didn't think... perhaps he had the association with the club that we claim. It's a little bit over the top, maybe. Really,
you think there's too much maybe baked into
it's
Taylor and
it's
Westward
good that
Ho.
This is his home place and club, and he was a president in 1958.
Your year, wow.
Yeah, 1958.
Wow, did you meet him?
I was introduced to him, yeah. My father introduced him, but to me, he was just an old grandfer.
I
was 11 year old, so yeah.
He was quite. We did some work recently around the Open Championship in 1922 at Royal St George's, and he made a late run at that, and he was quite old then. He was right in the twilight of his career.
He was really.
So 1958, he must have been, I'm guessing, nudging 75, 80, something like that?
I think he was 80 odd.
Wow.
80 odd, yeah. But I shook his arm, but to me, I said it meant, I know he was a golfing superstar of the day, but to me, he was just an old grandfather.
And at the time, you've got these old boys around you saying, no, this is an absolute legend. And
you're
sort of
that's
going,
right.
Yes, I'm sure he is. And we've all met those people, but you don't realise that.
No, you don't, actually.
He was part of the great triumvirate of golfers.
He was. Oh, yeah, terrific. Yeah, he really was.
So you think maybe there's quite a bit of stock. Obviously, he originated from Westward Ho and played his golf here, but moved on and came back at later life. Does that mean maybe that conversely Horace Hutchinson is almost kind of much more of a critical figure in the club's evolution?
Oh yeah, Horace Hutchinson, I mean I've
seen ditto marks underneath his names on the honours board.
Yes, right. Oh,
they obviously got bored of inscribing it.
Yes, right, yeah. He won everything here virtually, yeah. And he was a troubled soul though, wasn't he, apparently?
How do you mean?
Well, I thought, didn't he throw himself out a window, or did he commit suicide or something? Or have I got that wrong? I may have got that.
Well, you've caught me on the back foot, because that's my job to know that, and I honestly don't know.
I thought, he was pretty unwell come the end, I think.
But he was, really I mean, he was the trailblazing golf writer of the day.
Oh, he was.
He really started, was. I think it was this badminton libraries or whatever they were called. It became essentially the dossiers that held all the information on clubs as they evolved. He was an evocative writer. He wrote a lot about golf courses.
He wrote a lot of books.
And this was really his home club. This is where he played day in, day out.
This was it, yeah. Well, he was one of the ones we said earlier that he won the club silver medal when he was 17, I think. Then they said, we can't have this.
I heard they had a meeting in there or something while he was out on the course going, what do we do if this young fellow wins it?
I think he did actually do it, but they changed the rules shortly after to make sure it didn't happen again.
But it's great to have that connection with the past, isn't it? And I mean, were there any other things in researching for your book and in the process of putting that together where you thought, God, that's incredible bit of history? Because you must have a passion for the subject.
Yeah, but there were several things which I come across and I think I never knew that. How amazing, you know.
Tell me about some of those if you can recall them.
I don't know, it's going to be difficult. I mean, George Molesworth, really. I know Gossett is claimed to be the originator of the club or the founder member, but I think Molesworth had so much to do with it. Was he a man of the cloth? He was. Yeah. Isaac Gossett. He was the vicar up in Northam, and he gets the praise for all this, being the founder member of the club and making sure. But Molesworth was the boy actually that made it tick.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, you Google George Molesworth. It's incredible what he did.
In what way?
Well, he designed a sort of handsome car, was it? I don't know. I've got it all here.
Handsome car?
I say, you Google him, and he's everywhere.
What, had his hand in all sorts of industries?
Yeah. He wanted to make another bridge over the River Torridge. He is really an incredible bloke, and he's got much to do with the formation of the golf club and the driver of it.
Really?
Yeah, I think personally he had a lot to do with it. Yeah.
And the clubhouse where we're sat now, then. So my understanding is it's moved to its current site. Before it's way out into the, I'm going to say the abyss, because I don't really see what's beyond the golf course other than.
No,
Marsh and Linksland. So was that Pebble Ridge out there?
It is all Pebble Ridge out there. When you get to the second green, that is used to be the old 18th. Beyond that, first of all, they had a tent. When there was a big competition on, they had a tent. Then they put up a tin hut that was washed away in about 1880. Then they relocated it back into the Sandhills, but then I think they thought, well, this isn't going to last, so we need to. So they bought 3 fields,
and that's what kind of connects us in here, right?
This is 3 fields,
which takes us up to where? Would you know on the course?
Well, from the fence there,
almost, or from the fence, right?
From the fence right up to the road.
Okay.
So suddenly they had to create trustees because we had property. In 1888 we built the clubhouse.
Wow, which would still put this as an incredibly historic building, but it's not even your first clubhouse.
No, it's after a 10 2 other clubhouses. Yeah, I think there is
a tin hut. There is. I mean, it didn't feel evergreen, did it? A tin
There's
hut.
the tent.
Look at that. It's incredible. 1870.
Yeah.
The red jackets there, you just showed me a picture of some guys putting out there. That'll be the second green, which is now the 18th green, that's now the second green.
Yeah.
The red jackets, that sort of part of that original.
I think that was a copy of Blackie.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And there's the tin hat.
Oh, wow, yeah. 1874.
And there's the inside of it.
We'll try and get some of these pictures from your archives and put them up on the website.
It's a poor picture.
What can you tell me about the course then, Robbie? So, you've played here now for north of 70 years.
Yeah. No, south. I'm only 75.
75. Sorry, you told me remembering you're 5. That's why I was doing some bad maths.
It is about,
I'll take that one on the chin. For you, most magical part of the course? Where's that point where you still get the buzz today?
Well, to be honest, I think we've lost the best though. It was the 7th because it was a dog leg to the left. But I get a buzz out of every hole because
Really?
they're all different. They're all different, you know, and depending where the wind is, you know, like the fifth, which you'll see in a minute possibly, you can hit anything there from a wedge to probably a 3-iron. You know,
Wow.
is that much difference? And it depends on the wind, clearly. But yeah.
And the bunkering with the sleeper face, that's incredibly iconic. I want to say that's the fourth.
It's the fourth,
Right,
yeah.
I'm glad
yeah.
I didn't totally butcher that.
No.
That's totally iconic, really, to Royal North Devon. In terms of that look, you see that and you know exactly where the picture is.
Yeah.
That's an original feature. That's something that's come in Fowler's era.
Back in the day, it was the biggest bunker in the world. I mean, I've got another.
Because it was previously a fully exposed sand waste area, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I got a picture.
I mean, that would be something to reintroduce, maybe. Like, you should just get all the sand out now.
Wow. Yeah, but maintenance, isn't it?
True.
You know, is I probably can't find it anyway.
But back in the day, driving that with hickory clubs and
you couldn't. What is 150-yard carry? I mean, it doesn't sound very much.
No,
but
not
with
today's
hickory
kit.
and a gutta percha boy, really?
Wind against,
You know,
it would have been fearsome.
Fortunately, most times the wind is behind. You know, it's a southwesterly, so it would be helping you. But even so, it's just if you play with hickory and an old ball, you can't hit the thing nowhere, can you?
And obviously, the club's got royal patronage. I'm curious when did North Devon Golf Club become Royal North Devon Golf Club?
Well, it was a North Devon and West of England golf club. And it was, as we say, formed in 1864. But in 1865, we got royal patronage.
Oh,
and
really?
And it's
early
claimed that it was the Prince of Wales then, in 1865. And seemingly he was a member of the club as well, which I find a little bit strange.
Did you see any evidence of that in the archives and the history records?
No. All I saw was it was reported in the North Devon Journal, which is a local paper, that he'd granted patronage and in fact had become a member. So
there's almost a chance here that you guys are faking it as a royal club.
Oh, unlikely.
I'm just joking.
Yeah. Well, who knows, really?
It's like it's reported.
We had a big fire in 1923.
A lot of clubs had fires, didn't they? It's amazing how many archives must have gone in.
Yeah, and we lost a lot of stuff then. So we didn't have any proof other than this letter. I think the letter's dated 1901, where when the Prince of Wales succeeded the throne after Queen Victoria, he granted patronage again. It was almost like a repeat thing, you know?
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah.
That's interesting, though, isn't it? So it would have been technically 1 year into the club's history.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of anywhere, because Scotland would be the only place there could have been a royal club. And I'm not sure there would have been a royal club by then.
I'm not sure if we're the eldest.
It could make you the old.
Apparently was related to Queen Victoria's surgeon. So there might have been a link there, but that's difficult to trace, really. Yeah.
And again, hard to track down any kind of empirical evidence around that. What was that? I'm curious, because that book must have taken. Just talk to me about the process of just getting everything together before you can even start writing it.
Yeah, when I was the secretary, I thought, well, somebody's going to need to write a 150th anniversary book in 2014, so I'll start collecting bits and then pass it on to the boy, not realising that it was going to be me
holding the baton.
It was going to be writing the book. So I would prepared for it, and then they asked me if I'd do it, because I retired in 2010, and I almost started doing it then, if I'll be honest with you, but
you enjoy the process?
Yeah, come to divorce a little bit, almost divorce, because I spent so much time on it, but there you go, it is what it is.
It's a labour of love, though, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yeah. And I wanted to do it right with pictures, and we've got a 100th anniversary book and a 125 anniversary book, but they don't do justice, really. Yeah. I've gone a little bit deeper.
But they're nice. Well, yeah, I mean, they're nice to see that. It's nice to have those, though, still, isn't it?
Yes, of course it is.
A continuum.
Yeah,
and you've got
to
think that.
Yeah, and I pinched some of it from them.
Yeah.
So that's what's it, plagiarism?
yeah. But you've got to think that maybe, like, what? I mean, what do we have? You know, it's going to be like 42 years' time. I tell you what, my mental arithmetic is shot after 2 pints of Guinness, by the way.
42, yeah.
When you reach the 200th year anniversary,
will be 2064.
There's going to be someone that's
be 42 years, yeah. And I might say, "Oh, Fowler got all this wrong."
yeah. You might not be around to worry about it.
I don't think I'll be around. It won't matter.
news.
It won't matter. It really won't matter. No, it won't matter.
But I think, you know, that process is quite important because it's easily forgotten, isn't it?
Yes, it is actually. Yeah. It is. And as much as this is an okay book, even then I miss bits. But then I was constrained really by the size of the book. You know, so many pages, because otherwise, as you said earlier, it becomes unreadable.
You start to see them where they, you know, some club histories are quite thin, and some of them are brilliantly entertaining, and some of them are really starchy things that actually it just becomes almost a factual recantation of what's happened.
Mine is pretty much fact, but I've dressed it up with a few pictures, so you know it makes it. Hopefully, everybody who bought the 500 copies enjoy it. They're in demand a little bit now because everybody wants to, keep
of
what
course.
they got.
Well, I've just tried to get my hands on one, and I was told to get stuffed. Basically.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
I'm just joking. You've got the benefit of many years' wisdom playing these links. I'm a first timer here, as you know.
Yeah.
For any other first timers listening to this podcast, what advice would you give them? Not just about scoring well, but I would welcome that, by the way. But just in terms of enjoying your time down here, because I get the sense this course is a bit of a grower. It takes a few plays to grow on you, right?
Yeah, I think what you've got to do is take it all in. You know, get here in plenty of time, look at the museum, look around the clubhouse, you know, look at the locker room, you know, which is
Taylor's lockers in there.
Taylor's locker, there's a few other notables in there. Take it all in. The golf course, if you're playing all right, it'll serve you all right, but take it all in. That would be my best advice to everybody, you know.
Spend some time in there, look at the honours board and soak it all in.
Have a drink before you go. But it is what it is, you know. I say, if you play well, you love it. If you don't play so well, you think, no, I won't be back. But hopefully everybody does come back and give it a second chance, you know. Because from here it looks pretty bland, doesn't it? Flat, uninteresting, few ditches here and there. But when you get out there into it, you realise that.
But it's all going on the ground, isn't it? You know, you know, I always, our listeners to this podcast will be bored of this, and I think we said before we start recording, we were talking about cookie jar, but one of the most exciting feelings in golf is when you get out of the car at a club that you've never been to before, because it's a completely new sense, right?
Sure.
So you look around the clubhouse, the car park. What does the first tee look like?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll be honest, I've seen more drama on the first tee before when I've sat there looking at a course. But you know there's a lot more going on the ground. You know that it's going to have all these little tricks and hidden things buried in there.
That's links.
And there's all the history.
Golf,
exactly. And I think, you know, so many golfers these days are really quite, I think, guilty of being completely overawed by high dunescapes or you know, cavernous bunkers and seeing
possibly
you know, this is raw golf, this is sustainable golf, right? This is golf as it was invented. I
mean, to be honest, we almost had the Open here.
Really?
In 1909. We lost the vote by, I think it was 7 votes to 5. We lost it to Deal. But the vote took place in 1907. I think the Open, our bid was for the 1909 Open.
And that, so the RNA voted 7-5 against.
Yeah.
So it was a close run thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think likes of...
and you had, like, back then you had Deal had Princes and Georges, because they had that whole spell, didn't they, where they were struggling with cancelled opens because of flooding over the sea walls and stuff.
That's right. So,
which, you know,
but Deal
they always had a reserve contender.
And then Deal lost it because I think they were too short in the end, I think. But we made a bid for it. I think the criticism was there's not enough bed spaces here, and it was common land. I think Ball Ball said there's not enough.
John Ball.
John Ball said there's not enough bed spaces in North Devon to accommodate it, and I think because it's common land, we would have struggled to actually demand an entrance fee or something like that. But yeah, we did. To be fair, it was proposed by J.H. Taylor, who was the chairman of the PGA at the time.
Well, we talked about this. He did so much for professional golfers. Like he's a sneaky influential guy in golf.
Yeah.
I know he was a great player, but
yes, he is.
He
His hand is
did
everywhere.
a lot to almost. I mean, Stephen Proctor, when he was on our podcast, I think talked about the fact that people said to him in later life, you totally elevated the way professional golfers were viewed, because they were very much seen as working men, second-class citizens at golf clubs.
Yeah, they were.
Almost untrustworthy characters.
Yeah.
And then Taylor had kind of broken that impression, played him, fantastically well, but also won everyone over. And he then set up the PGA, which really actually saved the club professionals, because clubs back then were trying to buy the rights to manufacture and sell golf equipment and everything. Yeah. So Taylor was still championing, Royal North Devon then, and saying this should be.
And artisan golf. I mean, he supported that pretty much. Yeah, artisan golf. I think he was influential in setting up the Association of Artisan Golf Clubs. Yeah.
They now play at Temple, don't they, or something? Is that
in public. Or Parks, was it? There's another organisation that's I can't remember what it is now.
Yeah, but I mean, it is an interesting one. Just coming back to 1909, though, in that vote, I mean, you can't help but think, had the votes gone slightly differently and you'd had the Open Championship, the club that we enjoy today would almost be unrecognisable what would be here today.
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, we would have been suddenly, Yeah,
well, you're on the rota. It's viewed differently. Does that mean then the course would go through another radical transformation in the 20s and 30s because it's part of that rota that continues? Does that then mean the visiting golfer wouldn't be able to enjoy better access to the club because all of a sudden it would be filled with, maybe a different clientele paying a lot more money to come here, and the whole thing changes. And what you've got here is brilliantly authentic to RND, and whatever 111 years ago would have happened if it did have the Open probably would be as well. But there must be no getting away from the fact that two places would look totally different.
Oh, they would for sure. Yeah, they would. Yeah. I mean, as well, we've always had trouble with the graziers. The local graziers who've got permission to keep sheep
roam the cattle
and horses on the public land, really, and we've always been at odds with them all through the years. I mean, one particular chap, he dug up the fifth green in a fit of pique because
just took it upon himself.
Yeah, he dug it up. I mean, I think he got fined in the end. He did go to court and get fined, but we've always had this sort of contentious issue that we're doing wrong out here because we're cutting the grass and we're doing this and doing that, whereas the sheep should be eating the grass and not golfers mucking it up almost, So we've had a lot of trouble with the graziers down the years, but now that's all gone away because the old graziers have died and there are not many sheep out here, and I think that was because of foot and mouth. People, I think, moved away from sheep farming. So, sheep out there now are sparse. But you could have 1,200 sheep and 100 horses at any one time. Oh, and 1,200 sheep plus their followers. Which is the lambs. How'd you get on? So it is. I mean, I can remember as a boy, there were cows, donkeys, geese.
It was more packed with wildlife horses. Back then.
Yeah.
But they're still out there, right?
It was everywhere. It was absolutely everywhere. Donkeys, horses, sheep.
We talked about there some of the greenkeeping. Certainly some of the four-legged greenkeepers that you guys have. I've been fortunate to meet a couple of the green staff at Royal North Devon. Christy, obviously, I met at down at RNGC, actually, for Dan's par 3 tournament.
All right, yeah.
He's a great guy. I played him in the semi-final, actually. Played out his skin, which is surprising considering the sheer amount of alcohol he drunk. Credit to him.
Of it.
Great bloke. And Ollie played on Tuesday in... What was the event on Tuesday? Is that like
Wednesday, wasn't it?
Was it
Wednesday, the Cradle Cup, or was it?
She got 66.
I know. And apparently missed a short put
They've been
on
out
17.
at 4 a.m. cutting the grass.
I know, yeah.
Working
incredible.
working on the greens. Went out, shot 66.
Yeah, incredible.
Same again today. Apparently he's gone out, done the greens. He's
Yeah.
playing this morning, and he's got the final of the club championship. There he is, in fact.
Yeah.
Well,
To be honest, the greenkeepers have it tough because of the animals. Because it's common land.
You've got to work around them.
Yeah, you have. Yeah, it's not a great easy job, but no, they do it. They do it very well actually, because the course is in good condition. Despite the drought we've had, this bit of rain has helped mine. This bit of rain has really done well.
Well, Robbie, I must say a big thank you for having us down this weekend. It's a real treat. I can't wait to sample in it.
It's a pleasure to talk to you, my son. Hopefully you will enjoy.
I've absolutely no doubt that I will.
You're low handicap?
Well, I'm not a good golfer.
Aren't you?
I'm off 3, but I
three?
I don't
You can
expect.
play a bit. You
I
can play.
don't expect to be threatening the scoreboard. But,
well, it's unknown, isn't it? But I'm sure you'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost one of those. It's kind of like the first at St Andrews. There's almost too much width off the first tee that actually makes it deceptively narrow. Is there any truth in that?
Well, yeah, but it's not so, is it? I mean, it's wide open, really. I mean, if we had, back when I was secondary, we did still aspire to have the open, but to be honest, they'd rip it to pieces now. They'd rip it to pieces. So, let it go. It's done.
They're playing a different game. Robbie, you've been a great podcast guest, and thank you again.
Okay, thank you. All the best.
Watch this.